The crystal wine glass nearly slipped from my fingers when my mother said it out loud. Right there at the long mahogany table in our Houston mansion. "You add nothing to this family, Nora." Her voice was calm, almost bored, like she was commenting on the weather. Forks froze midair. My brother Ethan smirked into his plate. My sister Lydia let out that soft little laugh she always used when she wanted to twist the knife without looking cruel. My father just stared at his steak. I was 27 years old. I had an MBA from Wharton, 2 years running cross-cultural deals in Dubai, fluent Arabic, and ideas that could have doubled our commercial real estate portfolio. But none of that mattered on Sunday nights at the Caldwell table. Beatrice Caldwell, my mother, ruled the Bennett Caldwell empire like a queen who had already chosen her heirs. Ethan and Lydia sat on either side of her, glowing under her praise. I sat at the far end, near the staff door, like an unwelcome guest who happened to share DNA. "Pass the potatoes, Nora," Ethan said, not even looking at me. I passed them. Inside my chest, something very old and very cold finally snapped into place. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in my childhood bedroom that still smelled faintly of my grandfather's cigars and pulled out the one thing Beatrice could never touch, his worn leather journal. Page after page of his tight, elegant handwriting. Notes on ethics, on honor in business, on how respect is the only currency that never devalues. At the bottom of one page, in handwriting that had gotten shaky near the end of his life, he'd written, "One day they will try to erase you. Little lion. Let them. The quieter you stay, the louder the truth becomes when you finally speak." I closed the journal and smiled for the first time all day. They had no idea what they'd just done. The next morning at Caldwell Prestige headquarters, the glass tower downtown gleamed like a middle finger to the sky. I walked in wearing the same charcoal suit as always. Same polite nod to the receptionists who had stopped calling me Miss Nora years ago. The executive floor smelled of expensive coffee and fear. The Saudi delegation was arriving in 3 days. A $2.7 billion mixed-use project in Riyadh and Houston, the biggest deal in our company's history. My mother had been positioning Ethan as the face of it. Lydia was handling the cultural sensitivity slides, which mostly consisted of stock photos of camels. My name wasn't on a single email. I found out when I walked into the pre-meeting briefing and saw the seating chart. My chair was literally pushed against the wall next to the coffee station. Beatrice didn't even look at me when she said, "Nora, make sure the Arabic coffee service is perfect. You know how particular they are about hospitality." I nodded. I made the coffee. I arranged the dates and cardamom pods exactly right. And while they laughed in the boardroom about how Nora's finally useful for something, I stood outside the door listening to every word, memorizing every arrogant assumption they were making about Arab business culture. They were about to make a catastrophic mistake, and I was going to let them. By the time the Saudi delegation arrived 2 days later, the tension in the building was thick enough to cut. Sheikh Khalid Al Mansour and his team moved through our lobby like they owned it, because in many ways, they could. Quiet dignity. Perfect tailoring. Eyes that missed nothing. Beatrice greeted them with her brightest smile. "This is my son Ethan, who will be leading the project. And my daughter Lydia, our cultural liaison." Then, almost as an afterthought, she gestured toward me where I stood near the wall. "And this is Nora. She's assisting today." The sheik's gaze moved to me. I bowed my head slightly and spoke the traditional greeting in flawless Arabic. "Marhaban bikum fi Houston. Shukran li zawaratikum." The sheik's eyebrows rose. Very slightly. Beatrice's smile froze. Ethan chuckled nervously. She picked up a few phrases online. "Cute, right?" The sheik did not smile back. In the boardroom, things unraveled faster than even I expected. Ethan kept interrupting. Lydia attempted a few Arabic phrases she'd clearly practiced from YouTube and butchered them badly. Beatrice pushed aggressive terms, demanding majority control of any new IP developed in the joint venture, trying to slip in clauses that would have been considered insulting in Arab business culture. I sat in the chair against the wall, hands folded, watching the temperature in the room drop degree by degree. The Sheikh's translator began speaking faster. His team exchanged glances. Then came the moment. One of the younger delegates slid the bilingual contract across the table and pointed to a specific clause in the Arabic version. The English version said share development rights. The Arabic version said something very different. Beatrice had tried to pull the oldest trick in the book, hoping the cultural and language gap would let them get away with it. I watched the Sheikh's face harden. This was it. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I could hear it in my ears. Years of being invisible. Years of coffee service and dismissive laughter. Years of my mother's voice saying I added nothing. I stood up. The scrape of my chair was the loudest sound in the room. Every head turned. My mother's eyes flashed pure warning. I ignored her. I looked directly at Sheikh Khalid and spoke in clear, fluent Arabic. With your permission, Your Excellency, there appears to be a discrepancy between the two versions of the contract. You could have heard a pin drop. The Sheikh leaned forward slightly. Continue, Miss Caldwell. I switched to English, so the whole room could understand, but kept my tone respectful. The English contract promises equitable partnership and shared intellectual property rights. The Arabic version. I paused, letting the weight settle. Grants Caldwell prestige unilateral ownership of any patents or developments created during the joint venture. This was not discussed during negotiations. Beatrice's voice cracked like a whip.
Nora, sit down.
This is not your place. I didn't sit. Ethan hissed. You're embarrassing us. I kept my eyes on the Sheikh. He picked up both versions of the contract, studied them side by side. Then he looked at my mother with an expression I will remember until I die. Disappointment.
Pure.
Quiet disappointment. In our culture, he said slowly in accented but perfect English, a man's word is his bond. A contract is an extension of honor. When the words do not match the spoken agreement, he shrugged elegantly. There is no agreement. Beatrice tried to recover. It's a translation error. Nothing more. The Sheikh's gaze moved back to me. Is it a translation error, Miss Caldwell? The entire room held its breath. I could have saved them. I could have said yes.
It was just a mistake.
But I remembered my grandfather's journal. And I remembered every single time they had made me feel small. No, I said clearly. It is not. Chaos erupted. My mother stood up so fast her chair fell backward. Ethan shouted something about sabotage. Lydia started crying, actual tears. The ones she weaponized when she was losing. The Sheikh raised one hand. The room fell silent again. He looked at me with something that looked a lot like respect. Miss Caldwell, perhaps you would be willing to explain what the correct term should be. My mother tried to interrupt again. The Sheikh spoke without looking at her. I would like to hear from the only person in this room who has shown me respect. I walked to the head of the table, the seat that had never been mine, and laid out the discrepancies line by line. I explained the cultural implications, the importance of mutual benefit, the concept of baraka, in business, blessing that comes from fairness. I spoke for 20 straight minutes. No one interrupted me. When I finished, the Sheikh was nodding slowly. His team was murmuring in approval. Then he turned to my mother. Mrs. Caldwell, your daughter has saved this deal. Without her, we would have walked away today. Beatrice's face had gone completely white. The Sheikh continued. We will proceed. But only if Nora Caldwell is the primary liaison and project lead on your side. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Ethan looked like he might throw up. Lydia was openly crying now. But no one was comforting her. My mother finally spoke. Voice hoarse. She's never handled anything this big. The sheik's response was ice. Then it appears you have been wasting her talent for quite some time. He turned back to me. Miss Caldwell, do you accept? I looked at my family, the people who shared my blood, but had never once seen me. Then I looked at the sheik and his team, people who had known me for less than 2 hours and already showed me more respect than my own mother ever had. Yes, I said. But I have one condition. My mother laughed bitterly. Of course you do. I ignored her. I will lead this project. But I want autonomy. No interference from current executive leadership. The contract will reflect that. The sheik smiled for the first time all day. Spoken like your grandfather, he said quietly. We have a deal. 3 weeks later, I stood in the same boardroom alone. The new contract lay on the table, my name listed as lead partner and liaison. My mother had tried everything.
Threats. Tears. Guilt.
When none of it worked, she finally said the words I'd waited my whole life to hear. You really are extraordinary, aren't you? It was too late. The words tasted like ash. I had already decided. I wasn't staying to fix their empire. I was taking the relationships I'd built, the reputation I'd earned in one single afternoon, and I was walking away clean. The sheik's team had already approached me privately about leading a new independent venture, one that would actually honor the values my grandfather had taught me. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over Houston. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. You'll fail without us. I smiled. Then I blocked his number. Some tables you don't fight to sit at. You build your own. And you make damn sure the people who tried to erase you are never invited to the new one. I picked up my grandfather's journal from the table. Ran my fingers over the worn leather. Thank you, I whispered. Then I walked out of Caldwell Prestige headquarters for the last time. Head high. Heart finally free. The empire wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine to build, the right way. And no one was ever going to make me serve coffee again.